Hi, I'm Stephen Stump, here with one of our city councils, Brian Marl. Brian, thank you so much for coming out.
Thanks for having me, Stephen.
So Brian, what got you into running for city council?
You know, Stephen, from a very young age, I had a real passion for public service and knew that I wanted to run for public office at some point in my adult life. And actually, prior to being on city council, I worked for 6 years in Lansing for State Representative Kathy Anger, who, although she didn't represent the city of Saline, she represented Lodi, York, Saline townships, and then it went down into Monroe County. And that gave me a real great exposure to not only state issues but also local issues. It allowed me the opportunity to help people with a whole host of problems they were having with state government, and it lit I shouldn't say it lit a spark, but it intensified that spark within me to stay in the public realm. And I came to the understanding that I could do more in elected office. So in 2008, I decided to run for council.
Gotcha. So now you've been running council since 2008 now, so that's...
I would have been elected in 2008. I began serving in January 2009.
Okay, so January of 2009. Cool. So you've been doing that for a couple years now,
Yep.
And then when's your term coming up then?
I'm in the beginning part of my second term, and this term will expire in December 2011.
Gotcha.
Or 2012, excuse me, I'm sorry. And if I choose to run again, I will be on the ballot in November 2012.
Gotcha. Makes much sense. Now, I know you had your past experience being up in Lansing. Did you do any other councils or commissions or anything down here at Saline level before getting into the city council? Or?
Yeah, in addition to working in Lansing, beginning in 2002, I had volunteered on a variety of campaigns at both the local, state, regional, and national level. But in addition to being involved in the politics, if you will, I also served on the Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of Saline, the Special Projects Commission, and also the Historic District Commission prior to my election in 2008 to City Council.
Gotcha. Now, kind of jumping in with you you're working on 2 terms and stuff, is there any goals you've kind of set in your mind? And I know that, being on council, you're there to serve the city. It's not about your agenda versus
Right.
someone else, but I know once in a while, sometimes you come in with hey, this would be a great thing if we accomplish. Is there anything like that you've come in to kind of...
Yeah, Stephen, I've never really considered myself an agenda guy, if you will, but I did run on a platform, and I do have priorities and principles that I really don't deviate from. The first of which is that I have a historic understanding that one of the reasons why Saline is such a great and desirable community to live in is because of our relatively low millage rate, the amount of taxes that people pay that's assessed to their property. And that's one of the things that's made us successful. That's one of the reasons why we're able to attract working families to live in Saline, to send their kids to school in Saline, and to hopefully start a business in Saline. So I ran for council committed to maintaining that relatively low tax rate. Second, I ran with the understanding that the role of government is important, but there's a finite limit to it. And government should focus on areas and core fundamental services that people cannot provide for themselves, i.e. police, fire, infrastructure. So I'm committed to making sure that our police and firefighters have the resources they need to do their job. And I'm also committed to maintaining what I believe is our high standard of excellence as it relates to our infrastructure. And by infrastructure, I mean sidewalks, I mean streets, I mean water and sewer as well.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So now kind of going more into the personal side of Brian Marl now, are you working another job while trying to kind of do city council, or is it
actually
politics
all the time, and I hope you'll say a special prayer for me tonight, knock on wood. I have a job interview in Lansing on Monday. So at the moment, like so many Americans, unfortunately I'm unemployed, but I'm very kind of cautiously optimistic that this job offer in Lansing will pan out. It'll be something very similar to what I did for Representative Anger for the past 6 years. And again, I have a real passion not only for serving the public and engaging in municipal issues at this level, but I'm also interested in what's going on at the state. I think this is a really important time, and there's some tough decisions being made, and I want to be a part of that.
No, I understand. So how much of a time, I got to imagine city council to me has got to be like a full-time job just with the time of doing the research and kind of looking into it. Is it?
Yeah, it's a lot of time, but it's not overwhelming. Or at least it hasn't overwhelmed me yet. There are generally 2 regular council meetings a month. There may be a work meeting or 2, and then most of us serve on at least 1 or 2 other boards and commissions. At the moment, in addition to city council, I serve on the fire board, which meets quarterly, and then also on the executive board for the Saline Area Senior Center. Now, as it relates to my capacity as a city council member, I also serve on the Municipal Affairs Committee for the Michigan Municipal League. And for those who are unfamiliar with the league is basically our lobbyist, our advocate in Lansing and in Washington. And they keep us informed as to what's going on, in the legislature and in the Congress. And they advocate and lobby on our behalf. And so I serve on the Municipal Affairs Committee. I was also recently elected Secretary for Region 1 of the Michigan Municipal League. So again, in addition to City Council, I serve in other capacities related to that position that also keep me busy.
No, I can imagine. So if somebody wanted to look into coming into City Council and joining, the City Council force, any suggestions of routes or ways to, because to me it's not something you just all of a sudden come, I want to be on City Council. There's got to be more of a process
Right.
to get there.
One, you have to have a passion for public service. If you don't have that passion, you're probably not even going to think about it to begin with, but if you don't have that passion, you ought not to pursue it. Two, you ought to get involved prior to running for City Council. I think, there's an old adage that sometimes you have to follow in order to lead. And I think being part of the Parks Commission or the Zoning Board of Appeals or Historic District Commission is a great way to get exposure to municipal issues, to get involved, to meet people, to be part of the solution as opposed to being part of the problem, and to kind of just get your feet wet. I think, third, you've got to be able to weather a significant amount of criticism. No matter what I advocate or the type of vote I cast, there's always going to be somebody in the community, some segment of the populace who's going to oppose me and probably criticize me. And conversely, most people do that in a respectful, dignified way. But you have to have thick skin to endure that. So I would say those are the three major things. In addition to that, I think all of us on council are cognizant of the fact that we're going to disagree and disagree with some degree of we're going to disagree emphatically with one another from time to time, but it's important to disagree and still be respectful and still treat our colleagues as decent human beings, which they are.
No, that makes sense. So now with you talking about being stuff at the state and areas, have you thought about trying to run or looking into running for higher offices outside the city council?
I think that when you run for city council, there's so much of a learning curve. There's so much you don't know, no matter how experienced and how exposed you are to municipal issues prior to running. So I think if you get elected to city council, you ought to commit to doing it for at least 4 to 6 years. So at the conclusion of this term, I will have served 4 years. I would just about bet you dollars to donuts that I will run again in 2 years. And where I go from there, to be completely candid with you, I don't know at this time. I certainly have an interest in running for state office at some time, but I'll sort of play it by ear. And in politics, timing is everything. But I think at some point I will be interested in serving in a greater, more profound capacity, and probably the next natural step would be in Lansing.
Well, and I guess, the part of it that I could see with the benefit of going that is you started at the bottom at city council, so you
Right.
kind of see it where
Right.
the average person is,
Right.
so that definitely could be a benefit.
And from all the information and data I've gathered during my time in Lansing, I've come to the conclusion that people who have served in some sort of local elected office first come to the table with a much broader perspective and with a greater ability to understand and emphasize with local units of government. And generally, I think are more successful in crafting solutions to problems which townships, villages, and cities experience.
Gotcha. Now, kind of getting back to about being city council. Now, if I've got it right, you grew up here in Saline, right? This
Correct.
this is hometown for you. So,
Yep.
Did you go off to college somewhere, or have you?
Actually, Stephen, I'm fifth generation Saline area resident. And that's on my mom's side. My dad is a transplant to the Saline area from the east side, from St. Clair Shores. I did attend community college, and then actually in the middle of my community college tenure, if you will, I got offered the job in Lansing. So I sort of took a break. I am going to take classes again. I'm committed to achieving a degree, but at the present time, or during the past 4 or 5 years, I should say, I've focused on city council and my job in Lansing.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Very cool. So with technology around us now all the time, do you see it any easier for citizens to get a hold of you with email and Facebook and technology and all that, or is it still a lot of phone calls face-to-face, being out in the community?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I don't have a Twitter account, but I'm on Facebook. Of course, I have a cell phone and respond, pretty rapidly to emails once constituents send them to me. I would say majority of my constituents are the residents of the city of Saline. When they have a question, a concern, or a problem, they generally either email or phone call.
Is that how?
However, I will tell you that when I ran for council in 2008 and when I ran for re-election in November 2010, either myself or one of my campaign surrogates or volunteers knocked on just about every door in the city. Obviously I didn't speak with everyone in the city, but I spoke with, or a volunteer spoke with, I would say a good 40–30% of the voting populace, the residents of the city. And I derived a significant amount of insight from those visits. It was beneficial to me politically, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't deny that, but I also gather a significant amount, again, of data, of perspectives. People raise concerns and questions that they have, and I'm able to address them. And that's really one of the great benefits of canvassing and going door to door, is in addition to benefiting the candidate politically, you also gain a lot of knowledge and insight, which is beneficial to you as an elected official.
And as being one that's out filming a lot of events in Saline, I know I see you out here. Do you run into a lot of people kind of on the corner street at parades and stuff and different events, just kind of catch you for a minute and chat?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the ways that I think elected officials are successful and serve the people well is by being accessible. And that means responding to emails, making your phone number public, and encouraging people to contact you if they have questions. Attending events and going door to door. The more that people have access to you, in my opinion, the better. It will benefit you politically, but more importantly, it will allow you to be a more effective public servant.
Gotcha. Now, I guess some people have said this has been kind of one of my harder questions I've asked, a favorite event of Saline. Not saying that one's better than another, but is there one that's more near and dear to you compared to anything else that's kind of around year-round going on?
I would say it's a tie, to be completely honest with you, between Harvest of the Arts and Summerfest.
Okay.
I like both of the events because they're downtown, and the downtown is really what makes Saline unique. And it brings people to our downtown, and it exposes them to our shops and restaurants, which we hope they'll come back and patronize. In addition, I think that both events are great public-private partnerships. And what I mean by that is they are volunteer-led with a significant contribution from the private sector, from the business community. But the city of Saline also steps up to the plate and contributes. Financial resources, but more important, we provide DPW services and police services to make sure those events are secure and to do setup and tear down. And that, again, we've had actually this debate at council relating to the Celtic Festival. I don't think it's the role of government to organize, subsidize, and underwrite community events. But I do think community events have a profound and important impact on our community, and government ought to play a role. It shouldn't be a substantial role, but it should be a partnership between various entities, and I think that's what makes Summerfest and Harvest of the Arts great. In addition, you see so many Saline people, and not just people who live in the city, but people who live in the school district, come out to those events. They bring their family, and I like the warm weather. I like the spring and summertime and early fall, and both of those events, fit strategically within that calendar, within that time of year. And again, I just think they're great events, and for those that haven't attended either Harvest of the Arts or Summerfest, I encourage you to come out and experience those.
Very cool. And we've kind of danced around it and about city council and when this term's done, and kind of got the feel that possibly, probably, kind of looking at maybe another term here in Saline.
I would peg it at probably about 95% likely that I will run again in 2012 for city council.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to let our viewers know in Saline of anything more about you and city council?
I would just say that if you do have a question or concern relating to city government, I'm always available. I'm always accessible. Feel free to give me a buzz, send me an email, or if you see me at the grocery store at one of these great community events, please approach me because I'd love to hear from you.
Great, will do. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you,
It's been
Stephen.
a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
This has been an SCTN production.